Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? This is Amanda. Today is July the 3rd. It is Capricorn full moon. This might turn into a longer video that I put up onto YouTube, or it might be within the 15-minute limit that I try to keep to on Instagram and Facebook. Wherever you are watching me, wherever this lands, I send you love. And these are some thoughts with regards to today's energy. I have not prepared this video. These are just strands of different energies which feel appropriate to be talking about today. They are not particularly easy strands to discuss, and I am reminded that with success comes responsibility. If you have followed me for a number of years, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years, I hope you will agree that I haven't gone into the dramas of it all. I have tried to steer a middle path through the chaos, and I still am trying to do that. And yet today's energy, probably highlighted by this full moon, is rocking my boat and probably your boat in terms of trying to stay balanced and in harmony, which I will do, as will you, with the tools that we have, which are many, with the knowledge that we have learnt, with the wisdom that we have from many lifetimes, to tackle one of the greatest threats out there at the moment, which is the erosion of freedom of speech. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I will be choosing my words carefully in terms of what I can say and what I cannot say, because my guide, Archangel Metatron, has asked me repeatedly over the years to try to stay with where the main bulk of people are. That requires a presence on the main platforms. At the moment, they are YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I can't quite bring myself to get myself on TikTok, I have to be honest, although I know there's a big market there as well. Many teachers have gone onto alternative platforms. I'm not judging that, there's nothing wrong with that. And I understand it, because there you can really speak your truth. But ultimately, Metatron wants me to be where the bulk of the people are. And right now, they're still on these platforms. Right, where to start then? I'm going to mention France again, which I think is highlighting a lot of what I want to talk about. But this isn't just about France. France is in many ways a textbook case of what could happen in other countries. To a degree, is happening in other countries. May be coming to your country, unless we can get ourselves out of apathy and stand up for basic rights that we've had for most of our life, certainly in most countries that like to call themselves free. You don't necessarily have that blessing or privilege if you live in countries such as China. But where I come from in the UK, I've been blessed to grow up in a time where freedom of speech wasn't something to really be too concerned about. You're going to have to fill the gaps in for me in the comments, because I'm not completely up to speed on all of the different bills around the world and what they are doing to erode free speech. I just know the headline stuff. So I know in the UK, for example, there is a bill, I don't know whether it's gone all the way, I think it has been passed now at the highest court, not quite sure, but which limits, for example, the right to protest. If you're arrested when you are protesting, marching, it's a really dangerous place to be. I think your name effectively gets blacklisted. In Canada, there is a bill that has been passed, received royal assent. I think it's called Bill C-18, the Online News Act. From what I can gather, at a very pedestrian level, it's reminiscent of what I've seen is happening in Australia with regards to access to news, couched with regards to having to pay for news, but the end result is a limitation on what you can freely access. Over the weekend, Twitter have also announced new rules, couched in the language initially of trying to combat against bots, AI, areas of technology and problems that they legitimately have that I can't get my head around, because I'm not a technician looking at what Twitter has access to behind the scenes. But again, the end result is the fact that now there is a limit on how much and how often you can go onto Twitter unless you pay. And I experienced that Saturday night when I was trying to look at the tweets, maybe the twits as well. Look at the tweets with regards to the French riots. I got kicked off Twitter, as I mentioned in my last video. This morning, I came down for breakfast, switched on the news, and couldn't quite believe what I was hearing, although sadly I could. I didn't watch what they were discussing because it was later on in the morning. But I heard them say, we are going to be looking at a new service. It sounded like a telephone service, whereby you can ring a number to, if you are concerned about a friend or family member who is falling into disinformation. That sounds pretty fascist to me, that somebody else can decide whether they think you are falling into disinformation. And what is disinformation anyway? Absolutely, there is legitimate disinformation out there, but often it can be branded as disinformation just because I don't agree with what you say, so I'm going to say it's disinformation. I know many of you know this. This video is an opportunity just to bring up these issues that have been with us for a few years now. What has prompted me to come on today is the fact that yesterday I did the French video linking into the riots. I was picking up news blackout on that. Now, even though there are some news stations reporting it, I intuitively feel as though there's a lot that they're not reporting at the moment with regards to these riots and the level of civil unrest that is apparent in France at the moment, but as I say, can very well be copycatted in other countries. As of today, midday on Monday, the 3rd, I believe there are reports that there have been some copycat rioting, civil unrest in Switzerland and Belgium. It can easily spread to other countries. Of course, there is a discussion to be had in terms of, is it orchestrated? Many of you will think it is. Is it something that's come up from the grassroots that just needs to be heard, expunged, healed? My video yesterday was very much trying to create a safe space, a healing space for people to go to for reassurance, to look at the higher perspective of why things are happening right now in France. And this morning I'm just getting more stuff coming through with regards to it, which is why I've come back on. I'll come to that in a moment. Well, I will say it strikes me, and many of you mentioned yesterday, that of course there is a theory, or I think it's more than just a theory, that Jesus and Mary Magdalene together travelled to France. And it's why France has such sacred energy. There is a huge portal in France that powers that were would like to keep suppressed. Even the information of Jesus and Mary having visited there, of course, has been suppressed by the church for many years. You don't have to agree with me on that point, by the way, okay? It's more just that I would like to raise the hypothesis that if we have that strong Jesus and Mary energy in France, is it not interesting that we have this explosion in violence? Because this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last time, that there's mass civil unrest in France. Yes, yesterday I was talking about ancestral stuff also being part of it. But it feels as though there is a potential light that can come out of France that is very bright for the whole world, and the suppression of that at all costs will happen. Whether violence is, as I say, manipulated and orchestrated, or whether it's organically happening, the end result is the same, the suppression of that light. We are in times, and how many times have you heard me mention, that we are due a huge wave of Christ consciousness that will arrive. There is no stopping it. But we're in a game where it is trying to be thwarted. On Twitter last night, I do not take everything that I read there or on any social media platform as fact. I always encourage you to do the same. But there's been quite a lot of activity on there of people saying that France is about to go into lockdown and an internet blackout. Now, I believe I'm right in saying that Macron has said that where there are trouble spots and places of civil unrest, that they can temporarily disband the internet so it doesn't inflame the situation. Those that want to create violence can't coordinate their activities across different social media platforms. Yeah, I can get that. But we also have the question in terms of, once new powers are brought in, do they then expand them? At other times, what do they regard as unrest going forward? When do these powers kick in? When do they end? Etc. So, yeah, and in terms of lockdown, I know many of you know this, but the truth is that if the civil unrest carries on, it can be used as a very convenient excuse to bring in another lockdown for your own good, to keep you safe. Be very careful of a government that's always banging on about, we're keeping you safe. There's often an agenda behind that. So this morning I sat down and I thought, okay, I don't know whether to say anything about this or not. As I say, with success comes responsibility. I have got large channels now, many people following. The last thing I would ever want to do is put fear out there. But I would prefer to be wrong than to not say something that helped people to prepare for all eventualities. To be honest, we should all be prepared for all eventualities in this world. So I pulled some cards off camera, went back to the decks I was using in yesterday's video, and I was about to say pretty freaked out by the cards that came. I am going to share them with you. But as I say, it might have just been a moment in time. I might have got it wrong. But even if I haven't got it wrong, well, I'm just going to show you what the cards are. This is the Cathar deck. So I asked the question, could France go into another lockdown as a result of these riots? And the first card that came up, upside down, was this one. So over and above what the deck might say this is about, I immediately saw Rapunzel in the tower. So if you know the story of Rapunzel, she's locked up and kept away from life, from love, by the wicked stepmother or whoever it is, locks her up, and there she is in the tower calling out. But it came upside down. It also came with the card, which is the Ace of Love. Looks very much like the Holy Grail, doesn't it? Again, back to the Jesus and Mary energy. Is this actually just illustrative of what I've said before, which is that we want to keep the energy of Jesus and Mary in the tower? We don't want to let that out. In the Christ Consciousness deck that has just been released, we have a card linked into Mary Magdalene and Jesus together, for example. Two depictions, actually, not shying away from that that was a reality, that she wasn't just a disciple. I feel she was a partner of Jesus. What does that mean if we step into that? What does that mean if we actually embrace Mary as a very powerful teacher in her own right? Mary Magdalene came in as one of the guides for France in yesterday's reading with messages. And I've got more messages from her in a minute. But anyway, this was about, is there going to be another lockdown? And we've got somebody in a tower upside down, not celebrating. And we've got here, excuse me, the Ace of Cups is also to do with a lot of emotion. It's interesting, my throat went to that moment. A lot of emotion. So this would be a very emotional moment for France. It's almost like a PTSD memory would come back. We're being locked down again. As I say, if this doesn't happen now, it could potentially happen in the future with future violence if it's too much. We're locking you down for your own good. That's what they said last time. Different reason this time. The next card that came out that concerned me was this one. It's the Squire of Shields. Now, it shows a group that are looking at a plan, a book, a manuscript. They've got their heads together, coming up with a plan. Feels as though there is disagreement around this table in terms of what the plan should be. Very struck by the fact that we have the St. George's flag there at the bottom. Definitely it feels as though what happens in France can happen in England, without doubt, without shadow of a doubt, and not wishing to bring that into the cities here in my country, but we know whether it would probably kick off. But anyway, also ties between England and France. Anyway, there was disagreement in this group with regards to would we want to do another lockdown, but it's still there on the table. The card that then came out with this is the Lucifer card. Okay, so you can see that these four together are concerning. How do we answer that? We answer that by not being in fear, staying in our hearts, remembering the end result, which is that light always wins, and actually has. It's just that in another timeline it already has, but we're on that timeline, we're just not there yet. We're still playing the game to get there. In terms of being prepared, we're going back to things that I said 6 months to a year ago. Make sure you've got some extra things in, extra provisions. If you can afford it, don't let your cupboard be bare. Make sure you've got some tins, some dried foods, some extra water. We're in summer months here in Europe, so we don't need to be worrying too much about keeping ourselves warm. But if this was winter, making sure you've got your blankets out, all of that, candles, etc. Having a system in place to be able to get in touch with people that matter to you if communications were to go down as well, because this is a double whammy. I pulled another card from the Wild Unknown Archetypes in terms of could there be another lockdown in France, and I got the empty room, and that's giving me chills as I look at this, because the empty room feels as though it could be anywhere. It could be a restaurant, it could be a business. There's no one in the room. Well, where are they? It's because they're somewhere else. They're at home. They're not able to go anywhere. It's an empty room. It also feels as though it's a black screen. If you're as old as me or older, you will remember that in the old days, you used to have your TV programmes up till, I don't know, midnight or whatever it was, and then the screen would just go black. Or you'd get the girl playing with the toy or whatever, you know, the screenshot. You never had 24/7 rolling news or programmes. It would just be the end of the transmission. What I've just said about transmission, this could also be somebody coming on to announce something, a figure of authority, and then end of transmission. But I'm feeling as though it's more what I said at the start, the empty room. At this juncture, before I get people coming at me saying, you're fear-mongering, you're this, you're that, I'd like to read a beautiful comment that came in from somebody just now on my YouTube page. And actually, Brian, thank you, because you've spurred me on to release this video today that I was sitting on thinking, I don't know whether to say this today or not, because if there's not a lockdown, then you've got egg on your face. I don't care. I would prefer people to be prepared and ready. That's part of my role. It's part of my job, my little part of the world. You know, the people that follow me. I prefer you to be prepared and ready than not. So this is a lovely comment from Brian, thank you. He says, thank you, Amanda. I had not actually gone on social media. I sensed the blackout stroke lockdown you mention. This is yesterday's video. In my workplace, as is common, discussion of difficult, sensitive and definitely political matters is not tolerated. Many people are probably thus in the dark about events unfolding and the background to them. Thank you for your neutral, clear and forthright stance. Your channeling can be hard to hear, and I imagine triggering for some. If avoided for these reasons, you would sacrifice, if not undermine, the truth of your channeling and channeled messages. Truth can hurt at times. So too, the call to unavoidable battles that speaks of confrontations to come also isn't something some want to hear. Yes, the message to embrace faith in your own safety no matter what is powerful. Faith over fear. So thank you for that, Brian, because it's also where I am. It's not actually easy to come on a day which is full moon in Capricorn, we'll get to that in a moment, and deliver this stuff. I'm very well aware that there are large parts of the spiritual community that just want me to do a light and fluffy video today about all the good stuff that's going to come in on the full moon or that we're going to release. Well, hopefully we're going to release this time I'm talking about now, but equally, I'm always going to be real with you, okay? I can't not be. So at this juncture, I think I will pull 2 more cards from the Cathar deck, which are these 4 cards that we've got on camera. And then I'm going to tell you some messages that also came in from Mary Magdalene today, okay? So let's get back to this deck then. I'm calling in Archangel Metatron, please. Metatron, is there any other message you'd like me to deliver from this deck today, please? For the people watching, with regards to the subjects we're talking about, freedom of speech, censorship, potential lockdown, situation in France, internet blackouts, etc. 2 cards, please, Metatron. The 3 of Love, and the World of Light. Just have a little look. I'm going to start with this one, the World of Love. Oh, did I just say the World of Love? The World of Light. I mean, Metatron is all about light, okay? But light also illuminates the darkness. It illuminates the shadows. It illuminates what we don't want to look at. I actually had a thought this morning, and this is my British sarcasm coming out, because obviously I'm not going to get off my path. And I wouldn't want to go back to not knowing this stuff. And yet there's a part of me, and there's probably a part of you, that would quite like to be a muggle at the moment, you know? A muggle, Harry Potter, those that aren't awake, those that have got their head buried in the sand and are really happy with their head in the sand, really happy with what they don't know. But yet you and I are different creatures. We do know. We're in the light, but because we're in the light, we know what's in the darkness. We can also see potential things that can arise. Our job is not to shy away from that. Our job is to shine the light on what needs to be shone. Let me have a little look at what it says about this card. So it's card 21, which would be the world. The world. And I think, no, it's not the world. Hold on, I always get my Roman numerals wrong. It's the sun. It's the sun. Really? I thought the sun's usually what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. In this deck, it's the sun. The sun brings an exact counter to the insubstantial world of shadows represented by the moon. To the Cathars, it was known by the title Weaver of Light and perceived as breaking through from the paradisal realm of light to pierce the dark world of men. In the imagery of this card, we see the credence listening to words from the most important surviving text of Cathar tradition, sometimes known as the Secret Supper. It is cast in the form of a dialogue between John the Divine and Jesus Christ, from which emerges the alternate tradition of the creation of the human world by the demiurge and the true nature of human life. By following the way indicated by this text, the Cathars stood a good chance of becoming a parfait, and at the end of their lives of leaving behind the world of shadow for that of the eternal sunlit paradise in which they would enjoy an eternity of joy. So it's a bit deeper than your normal sun card on a lot of decks. And it comes with the Three of Love. And I'm just going to have a look at what it says about the Three of Love in this deck, because they're very specific messages. Here we go. So it says, the Cathars were no strangers to joy, despite their reputation for purity and restraint in all things. Here the card celebrates recovery, happiness and success. It encourages pleasure, enjoyment and mirth. And if you have been sick, points the way to recovery and healing. Okay, so I think what Metatron's saying is, and this ties into what Mary Magdalene's about to say, however heavy and dark it feels now, with regards to very real challenges in our world, potential lockdowns again, whether for civil unrest or other things, we know what that did to the human psyche, and mental health now at an all-time low. Freedom of speech, many other things that, you know, are difficult. However heavy it feels, however much you just want to be a muggle and run away from it all, we have to remember the joy and the good times and the light and the power of the sun, which is linked into our solar plexus energy, of course, and shine on. Shine on. Now, there were a few cards that came through from Mary Magdalene this morning. As I say, I wasn't sure if I was even going to do this video, so I'm just going to show you what came out. I think I put them back on the top of the, yeah, I did, on the top of the pack. So these are the same decks that I was using yesterday, the Magdalene Oracle by Toni, Carmine, Salerno. And we got these two. We got Purgatory, we got Guardian Angel, and we got Ascension. For some people right now, it feels a bit like hell. Okay? If it doesn't now, it might do soon. Hopefully not, but you know, there's so much that we as a society need to look at. We haven't even scratched the surface really of some of the nasty darkness that's down there. Whether it be child sex trafficking, human trafficking generally, etc. So many things. And it's going to feel like this down here when a lot of this stuff comes out. But look at that card, which is actually purgatory, but look at the light. By going into the abyss and looking at the most difficult things and also facing restrictive energies that are the opposite of where we want to be in New Earth, which is to do with freedom and joy and all the rest of it. But yet it's by looking at this stuff that the light comes to our world, has to be released. And as we do that, and as we feel as though this is just such a heavy planet, I don't want to be here, the guardian angel that we all have is sitting there saying it's going to be okay. And the other card that came out was this one, which came out yesterday, Ascension. These times with Lucifer, with it feeling like purgatory sometimes, cannot stop this from arriving. But we've got to be the light. We've got to be the calm in the eye of the storm. We have no other choice. Okay, sorry, that's my stomach. I've told you this video, I'm so unprepared. Right, let's pull another couple of cards on camera. And then I'm going to leave it there for today. Let's pull one more actually from this deck that I used yesterday as well. Any other message for this morning, please, for the people watching? Oh. The womb and the thread. And the village. Takes a village to raise a child. Getting into some heavy stuff here. Hold on a minute. Child's arm coming out of the darkness to be rescued, for us to notice that they're even there. For us to care. Noticing that in the womb card, there's a small little pearl. Pearls only get to be pearls through challenge and difficulty and abrasion and friction. Can you imagine the outpouring of, yes, grief, but also love with regards to trafficked children, when most of the muggles out there that don't want to know about this stuff wake up to the fact this happens in our world. It happens every single day. Every single day. We don't want to look at it. Well, maybe the village is getting ready for that eventuality, that discovery. The cave. Yeah. Oh, I've just realised that film's released tomorrow, isn't it? I don't know whether Mel Gibson is actually involved in it or not. There's a big film being released on July the 4th, which is tomorrow, about this very subject. Let me just see if I can find the name of the film. I'm recording this on my iPad, so I can't pause the camera like I normally do. And to be honest, if you've got this far into the video, you're one of my regular followers anyway, so you'll be bearing with me, thank you. Sound of Freedom, it's called. It's released on the 4th of July. It says, after rescuing a boy from ruthless child traffickers, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. With time running out, he quits his job and journeys deep into the Colombian jungle, putting his life on the line to free her from a fate worse than death. Yeah, it's released tomorrow. It's called The Sound of Freedom. It's 2 hours, 15 minutes. That's what these cards are about. How can these cards not be about that? The thread, the cave, what's come out of the womb, children that have come out of somebody's womb, but they've been abused. The village is getting ready to look at it. Now, at what level? You know, I know we might be looking at it. How far it gets out into society, I'm not sure yet, but it's a start. So, there's that. Let me now pull a card from this deck, which is calling me, which is the Wisdom of the Hidden Realms. Whoops, they've gone all over the place, so let's just try that again. I'm not reading 8 cards. Let's just have 1 card, please, Metatron. It's actually, even though it's it's heavy when we care to this degree. Thank God we care, because most people don't. They don't want to know this stuff. So we've got the Phoenix, we've got Resurrection and Surrender to Change. We've got the River Queen, Flow, Letting Go and Natural Movement. And we've got Sacred Union, Partnership and Romance. I think that's Jesus and Mary. I think that's the Jesus and Mary energy. So we've got water and we've got fire coming in with this moon today, coming into this month. It's as though the Jesus and Mary energy is helping to bring this stuff up. For the phoenix to rise from the ashes, for water to help heal the wounds that are to occur. It's interesting, the River Queen, because, I mean, I'm supposed to be going to France, as I said yesterday, in about a week's time, and we're staying near the Loire. And I was tuning into the rivers in France and what they would say, especially the Seine, you know, that runs through Paris, where some of the troubles have been. And it feels as though our rivers and our waterways, as they always have been, do such unsung work to help bring healing and harmony to our cities and our towns, to take away what comes up energetically, to let it flow back out to sea. And it just feels as though there's this energy with the rivers in France, but in many other places around the world that are helping at this time. But also the energy of fire transmuting everything. Okay, one final card, and then we're going to leave it here for today. As I say, I wasn't expecting to come back on quite so soon. But hey ho, let's pull another Mary Magdalene card. Let me just use the Mary spray as well. Mary Magdalene, Divine Feminine. She's saying, do not be sad. Put your feet up and rest. The journey has always been long and difficult and complex. The world has always been thus. What was seeded will grow. What was seeded will blossom. The time is coming for my children to be free. And I feel that is like at a macro and micro level. We are all the children of God. That's what she's meaning by that. But also the ones who are trafficked, for example, that's a very physical freedom that's needed. Sacred sexuality. You see, in the Christ deck, one of the Mary and Jesus cards is sacred sexuality. I can't remember if I actually called it that. Let me just show you what it is. Because it also feels as though one of the things that's arising is us remembering what sacred sexuality actually is. And it's so not what we're fed a lot of the time by the media, by society. Oh no, we did have a sacred sexuality. We have got a sacred sexuality card in the deck. It's that. But I actually called the Mary and Joseph one, I think I called it Divine Union. There we are. Still got the painting actually. Sacred Union, Holy Grail, yeah. Where do we start, guys? Where do we start? One step at a time. Because you see what I'm tuning into here is what's happened with the children, the trafficked children, often for sexual reasons, of course, sexual abuse. It's such a perversion of what sexuality should be. You see, my phone's just beeped with news and it's all about Wimbledon. I love Wimbledon. This is what I feel today. It's just like, wouldn't it be so much easier just to be a muggle and not know all this stuff? But this is the path we've chosen. This is my world. This is what I'm all about. Uncovering all of this, looking at it, facing it, not being frightened by it. Sometimes we can get depressed by it, of course we can, but ultimately I have absolutely no doubt that light wins. I just don't know the time frame. So we just got to hold the line. Keep our heart and soul aligned to light and to love, and we will get there. Going to leave it there. 44 minutes and 4 seconds. Take care. Love you all very much. Be there for each other. Be kind to each other. Be supportive of each other. We're an awesome tribe. Thank you. Bye-bye for now. Bye.